Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the latest Wednesday DotPro show here on the Defense of the Patients Network. And we don't have an interview guest, a podcast guest this week, but it's right back to me, Korean barbecue with Woodshrew. Nice to just, I don't know. It's been a long time since it's just been the two of us. Shrew, how does it feel? It feels kind of weird, huh?
Yeah, it feels like I'm the interview guest or something, or maybe you are. It feels so empty in this room, this digital
Yeah.
online room.
Yeah, I'm like getting ready to jump on someone with some questions, and there's nothing there. It's just us two.
Just silence, right? No response.
Yeah, so obviously, the big news this past week in the professional scene was this Epicenter tournament, and I mean, I think it was a kind of a long tournament. There's like a wild card phase as well at the LAN, and I just remember basically there being Dota to watch like every morning and every afternoon,
Yeah.
and that was pleasant. Like even beyond like the weekend, and by all accounts, it was produced fairly well. There were some audio issues. I remember being able to hear like someone else on stream, like basically the Russian casters talk when I was listening to the English
Yeah.
stream.
I think just like the placing of the casters at the actual arena itself, the physical positioning of them, it's like within earshot, and so we would have some like audio leakage. And even throughout the tournament, there was like the only blemish they had, I think, that came up on like Reddit was like the random robot voicing every like hour and a half or something. But that got like identified to be like the sound gear that they were using, strangely enough. But I think it was somehow it was dealt with because when I was watching the finals, it didn't seem to be an issue.
Yeah, I just saw a tweet from OD Pixel a little while before talking about how this like it was basically what like a 5-man team behind
Yeah,
this organization, and
that's crazy, right?
yeah, that's really impressive. And like so here's the thing: if you go to an event and or say you work at an event, you get to see like exactly what people have to struggle with and all the problems they're dealt with. Versus like say being on Reddit or commenting and saying, "Oh, I can't believe this is happening" or "This is
Hmm.
ridiculous," it gives you a different picture of things. But based on the actual logistics, the problems that you have to solve that you can't really foresee or plan for, I mean, I'd say this went incredibly well. And again, we don't have some of the inside stories from people who might have seen things go wrong or other issues, but from our perspective, it would seem to have been handled beautifully. It seems to have been really well run.
Yeah, I mean, if this is like if I'm when they say it's run by 5 people, I hesitate to just kind of chalk it up to like this 5-man team, obviously running this $1 million tournament. I maybe they had some collaborative efforts with like the Russian like Starlight production. I'm not sure. Like, there's not really much that we can read up about. This is like their first foray, like this epic esports events in Dota. Like, there hasn't been anything like this previously. But from like the viewer, like Twitch viewer side of things, I thought the production looked really, really nice. I thought the stage production was like incredible. I don't think I've ever seen anything like so unique in terms of what they were doing with like the giant models of like Roshan and stuff, and the lighting on the against the stage. Like, that was super, super like high level stuff. And it's not necessarily just like crazy production money. It was just like very tasteful and artistic. Like, it was like pleasing to the eye without having just being like just throwing money at it. So I thought it was just really well thought out. Um, did you like? For me, I felt like it was kind of difficult to watch games because they were like super super late at night, like in the middle of the night, and you would kind of catch like the end of series in the morning and the afternoon. But how did you find that experience, Jack?
I keep very odd hours, so I was just I happened to be some of the games started right before I went to sleep, so I
Oh my
was
god,
able
that is
to.
late. That is really
Yeah,
late.
which actually was unfortunate because that means I would sleep through like the majority of the games and then wake up
Hmm.
and see them later. But yeah, what's really interesting. There's a lot of like regional pride and stuff, right? So as a Western audience, we like to crack on China a lot, or we expect certain things about them. The expectation for CIS is usually, I think, recently been pretty good. Like and whether it's Croatia, whether it's Starladder in Kiev, whether it's this event, I
Yeah.
think people are pretty happy about how those basically Eastern European, Western European tournaments are run, and or Russian tournaments are run, and so I think that's really nice. People clamoring about them getting a major, and I could certainly see that going down. I think the fan base over there is huge, and yeah, I don't want to venture into making too many generalizations, but yeah, in terms of like the theater, like the professionalism of that and the presentation, um, it made me really appreciate that. It's like, wow, this is Moscow. This is like, known for like historically or culturally, also these other great performances, the Bolshoi or whatever else. And this is them, yeah, it's like them showing their stuff for this game that they like. And, I thought it was great.
Yeah, I felt like the VODs had a lot of replay value. Just like when I find the production just so pleasing to watch, like good casters and a great panel. They went and got Red Eye right for the event. Like I definitely would want to go back and dig up the VODs and rewatch them because it just makes it that much like easier, right? Because sometimes when you miss these games and the tournament has like a lot of production issues, I don't want to name any names of like the recent Asian tournaments, but obviously it just that much detriment to just watch the Dota that you just want to see and there were some really great teams. The one thing I want to bring up right before we start getting into the, the Dota side of things, like professional Dota side of things, is we didn't get that EG Secret series, which is crazy because they're in the same group. Like Jack, what?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't
Like
really
what?
know.
I
I mean,
I'm stunned.
that was that's I don't know. That's yeah.
That's
It's kind
what?
of weird.
What?
That's like the almost marquee matchup, right? I mean, I know that both teams, have not really lived up to maybe hopes or expectations yet.
Hmm.
So, maybe not as hyped of a matchup, or maybe it was something we were hoping to see later on in the tournament. But both teams really looked a little out of sorts, and it takes some time to adjust. And for EG, you think you saw earlier in the week, maybe there was someone posted a something off S Gamer that had basically it was EG in the booth, and Aoi was leaning back in his chair with like a look of like resignation or kind of frustration, like like just basically lying back in his chair, like sprawled out. And the Chinese forum had this like little poll, which was like, "What is Aoi thinking right now? Is it like, I'm getting kicked again, or like something like that?" And I don't know if you saw that, but I
I'm
think
digging it up as we speak. Okay, I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna break it down for us, for the listeners. We've missed out this great because okay, I have to admit, like, the more and more the kind of the forum culture and like they don't really have a Reddit over there, um, thanks to the Great Wall of Firewall of China, but they have their own kind of thing. Like you mentioned, S Gamer, and apparently the Chinese community just has incredible level memes, like just very very good commentary, like great satire. But all right, for this AOI thing, so number one, fuck PPD, 6% of the vote. Number two, boring game, please kill me, 2% of the vote, so pretty bad. Three, I've made a huge mistake, 1%. So no one agrees that AOI made a bad mistake joining EG. But number four, they're gonna kick me again, 90% of the vote. It was like such a like resounding like no, that's exactly what like everyone is in agreement. So 90% of the people have spoken and they think AOI is gonna thinks he's gonna get kicked. But yeah, it was a great stuff. It's good.
well, to borrow a phrase from our interview that we did, it felt like his he felt a little marginalized during those matches. It just felt like he was constantly in a very difficult position. Again, I can't really assign responsibility specifically to him or how he played, but it felt like EG were drafting or were playing strategies that were from like a different meta, or maybe more comfortable for them, and they kind of just decided to stick with it and they assumed that it would work. But I felt like they had some issues with like a situation where they had a single core, and say I was playing like not Sven but like Lifesteal or something, and it was like the pressure is on this single core to get things done mid and late game in terms of damage, and there's just too many answers for that single core. And a lot of times you just see him getting kind of kited around, and it's like, how do I even get into this fight? And so
Yeah.
so EG is I think still have some wrinkles to work out, but obviously they have the talent and leadership for it, so I'm not really worried about them.
Right. And like from all the interviews that we've been having with professional players, cough cough, that wasn't meant to be a soft plug. I didn't mean that, guys, but they like continuously highlight the fact that Dota is moving and shifting away from like individual skills. Like games are not determined by individual play as maybe as much as in the past, and it really is just become a like emphasis on the team game and playing in a coordinated fashion. And you just have to point to the fact that EG and Secret are just new teams now, like in very fundamental ways. EG has replaced like their offlaner and their carry, and that is just such a huge like I mean for both teams actually they've done that. I guess RTZ is the carry in the mid lane, but regardless, these are two of the biggest like playmaking roles by the mid and late game, right? And any team can't just weather such a huge change and just continue to be and expect to be the same in terms of performance. There's gonna have to be an adaptation period, and I mean, I'm looking through the group stage results right now, and as playoffs as well, and this is pretty scary. But EG didn't win a single game against any team that wasn't VP that weekend, that week. They got 2-0'd by Newbie. Surprise, Secret got 2-0'd as well by Newbie. They've been playing amazing, right? And EG got 2-0'd by Complexity and got 2-0'd by Liquid, and that's it. They literally won a couple series against VP, beat up on their old Russian friends, and other than that, they were really struggling. So it's tough to watch. I think when you mentioned like this, the AUI kind of out of sorts, maybe marginalized. It certainly felt that way when he played heroes like Sven and Lifestealer, and he was just like sort of caught in the middle of like no man's land and like kind of clawing his way one way or another. Doesn't know if he wants to fight, doesn't know if he can commit, and he's just getting like picked off. Like that's a terrible feeling to be like as a Lifestealer, right? Like not really sure if you're taking the fight. That hero is obviously really strong when he's like chasing down that core, got the open wounds on it. But yeah, that I definitely agree with like just the general feel that you had watching EG and AUI.
Yeah, it seemed like he even had very difficult decisions to make in terms of itemization. I remember a game. I don't remember which series it was, where he went like fairly unusual items on Lifestealer, and it was like I think he had some very different builds. Like usually you see the race car build, or you see some kind of maybe stun build, and he went Desolator crit, I think, to try to take down an
Yeah, yeah,
alchemist.
yeah.
And yeah, it was just like I don't know. It's like hard. Like, you can see kind of the indecision there, where like it's hard to decide when he enters fights. His itemization almost doesn't fit the hero. It doesn't seem like what you want on the hero, but it just had to be adapted that way because of the game situation. So, um, yeah, I think in terms of communication, they have some things to work out, and the public, some of the public pressure might just be like, hey, why don't you just switch Fear back, or but I mean, I think Fear in playing support has done a pretty good job. He's got a very diverse hero pool, like
Mhm.
maybe one of the most diverse hero pools for that position, or just out of any player that we've ever seen, like
Yeah, yeah.
as a carry as well, right? So I think that's actually quite valuable, and as long as they can figure out things maybe from a big picture or gel a little bit more, I don't think it's going to be an issue for them. So I hope they put it together at Manila.
Um, I mean, with Secret, like I wasn't able to watch much of it. I'm obviously a huge fan of Secret, the players on Team Secret, but I felt like Universe was singled out in terms of the community for his performance. I think it was like there was like a post where it was like EG.universe, like Darkseer is like world number one or something, and Secret.universe Darkseer is like don't even ban it or something like that. And he was like super unlucky in some parts, and for a hero that is just so reliant on coordination, right? Darkseer in terms of going in as a group and taking full advantage of that spell set, which you only get one chance at it every minute or so. Um, yeah, it didn't seem like he was making those impactful plays that we're used to seeing on that hero. I remember one fight that it was just sheer bad luck. I think he blinked in straight into like a tornado from I think Moose Invoker, and that was like a game-ending fight, which was really unfortunate. But I mean, that's just how the chips fall, right? And I felt it was a little underwhelming performance from him, and we kind of expected to see like, wow, you have EE, you have RTZ, and you have Universe, like, they're all gonna just go crazy. But it's for the most part, it has been kind of like a subdued performance. Um, but I think they're still gonna still be a pretty strong team looking ahead into the Manila Major. But
So you brought up a couple interesting things there. I mean, one of them is, we talked with Moo about this, and pretty much everybody's brought this up, where you have like, once you meet this kind of skill floor to become like an elite professional player, all the teams that are up there, even some of the tier two teams, quote unquote tier two teams, like the individual skill gap is not really that pronounced, right? Like, I mean, there are people who specialize in certain heroes and play them very well, but for the most part, like you're not winning games with one or two people just outplaying everyone. It's going to have to be, or like they even can't, because right decisions can become wrong decisions based on coordination. And so, yeah, I mean, Universe is used to playing at a certain pace or tempo, maybe with EG, and it felt like it felt like he was always in the right place at the right time, and it always worked and
Yeah.
clicked. And that's going to take time to replace. And also within other circles, within, for example, some Chinese observers that I've talked to, um, when they talked about the previous EG team with Arteezy and Sumail, they said, well, the question is if you have people who play according to their own rhythm or their own tempo, where you have to play kind of according to them, is that going to work with too many people like that? It's kind of like we're both basketball fans, and it was kind of like the heater whenever you put these all-star teams together, and it's like, yeah, these people are used to dictating the pace of the game on
Yeah.
their own, and that's where their strength is, and like so. Can you have too much of that on one team?
That's interesting. Yeah.
With the secret thing, some people are saying, well, if you have too many people who are used to playing to their pace, maybe you add, another player who fits that description, and it becomes very hard for them to work together because who comes off their line or who makes sacrifices to make it work. And so, I don't want to oversimplify things, and the talent is obviously there, but again, they haven't put it together really to the level of expectations that we've had just yet.
Yeah, for sure. Um, but yeah, I also have a lot of confidence for that team going forward. Like, just the Dota intelligence on that squad is like overwhelming, right? Like, and if there's any players that are able to like adapt their game and learn to kind of get their chemistry going, it's probably going to be those two boys, Arteezy and E, just because they think about the game like they've been friends for so long, and they probably see the game in very similar ways. And if those like foundational things are in place, like they'll probably find ways to win Dota games. And unfortunately, we don't have any tournaments between now and the Manila Major, so we won't have another chance to. Because yeah, it's just we had some really fun tournaments to watch, but we just haven't seen. We've seen some teams just play super good Dota. Like I don't want to, like just because we spent some time talking about EJ Secret, like I don't want to spotlight just be solely on them because there are people who are playing this patch at a very high level. But yeah, we'll just have to kind of wait and see on beta breath for like the EG Secret series that we kind of want that mean mugging series with all the rivalry for the West. But, yeah.
Yeah, of course, you talk about other teams playing well. Liquid finally got past their almost Cloud9-ish string of second places by taking on this tournament. They beat
Mm.
Newbie, who were actually in the wild card for this tournament. They came out of there. They had a writing was like a 29 game win streak at some point.
Yeah,
They had just been basically the kings of China, more or less, after Shanghai, and yeah, they've been looking really impressive, and some people, could easily dismiss that and say, "Oh, well, you're the kings of China, but the Chinese scene is crap right now, as proven by Shanghai." But even with after the reshuffle and the resurgence of some of these teams, we've seen Chinese teams win multiple events recently, notably Vici Reborn and Wings getting their direct invites. And I was kind of saying before that it kind of sucks that Newbie aren't going to get their land chance until Epicenter, so that they basically not going to play any international lands between Shanghai and Manila, so they were not going to get that direct invite
yeah,
because of how poorly things went for
yeah.
China
That's
at
crazy.
Shanghai.
Yeah,
And so I mean, they ended up qualifying, so they're going to be at the major. And coming into the major, they have to be probably considered one of the favorites at this point because they've played really really well, and they clearly seem to be an elite team. And they've played aggressively, they've played very precisely, and they like Chinese teams have kind of this reputation of like executing very well in terms of team fights, defending high ground. I remember there's a game like I think against OG or Alliance where they did that perfectly. Like they were getting kicked off the map basically, and they just made this great hold onto high ground. Actually, I think it was against Alliance. S4's Death Prophet went high ground, and basically that positioning mistake where he was out ahead of his allies and got blown up, and Loda wasn't there to help him with Sven. That single team fight turned the game for them. They basically
yeah.
didn't let go of the comeback from that moment onwards. So, I mean, yeah, they're clearly looking to be a very strong team here. And we talked about kind of the cycles of like teams coming back into prominence. Alliance, Navi, who are going to be at this major. We're like, is this TI3, TI2 all over again? Well, Newbie were the TI4 champions, and
Dude,
so
wouldn't that be incredible to see? That would be amazing. And imagine if EG shows up for
yeah,
with their TI5 Hall
right,
back.
right. That means EG's next, right, for the resurgence.
Oh God, I can't wait. That'd be that'd be great to see, man. Um, with newbie, like just think about it. If they didn't qualify for Manila Major, and they have this streak anyways, right? And they just dump on everybody. Maybe they even beat Liquid in the finals of Epicenter. Like, what do you say to Valve? Like, you know what I mean? Like, that would have been a huge embarrassment or just like a miscalculation, right? Because you could have the world's best team not make it into the majors just because of bad luck in the qualifiers. Maybe they they lose the best of five last series in the qualifiers or whatever reason. Like that would be really crappy, right? But thankfully they were able to beat all the other Chinese teams in qualifiers, and I think they even beat out eHome in the Manila Major qualifier, right? Since that ISIS's new team with Lan M will be showing up. But
Yeah.
um, when you were
Well, yeah,
talking
that's
about,
that's a great point. And the flip side of that point is, what if Vici Reborn or Wings hadn't won the tournaments that they went to?
yeah,
Like, what if Vici Reborn lost to Navi, say, in the
yeah,
finals of
yeah,
Starlighter Invitational, or they came in third? Like a respectable finish, but nothing especially impressive. Or what if LGD hadn't done as well in that tournament? And what if Wings hadn't won ESL One Manila? Like, I would Wings get an invite? Wings doesn't have the big names, doesn't have the really recognizable players, and so far from adding on to just people criticizing it, it's very difficult decisions to be made there because if those teams don't win, it becomes much less cut and dry whether you invite them,
right,
and but I think generally I do like the message that's being sent from that process, which is that if you're in China, you can't sit in your domestic scene anymore. If you want to go to majors, you
get
kind
on the
of
stage, yeah,
exactly you can't just kind of tone things down and lay low in between TIs and expect to get there. Like you have to go to international tournaments to prove yourself. And I think
hmm
teams already do want to do that, but this puts a bigger premium on them to like go out there and mix it up at lands if they want to go to majors. And so I think generally speaking that's healthy for the scene. And again, like you said, newbie a real close call. Because quite possibly, if they don't make it out of the China qualifier or something, then and they do well at this tournament, it seems like a big travesty that they don't make it. But and with a series of tournaments coming up that have international teams, it's just more. I think we'll see more Chinese teams more aggressively angling to go to these events, and I think that's good.
Were you able to watch any of like the newbie games at length?
A few, mostly in the finals. I
Yeah,
think the games before, a lot of them just seemed very precise. That they knew exactly what their timing
yeah,
was going to be. They took fights almost always on favorable terms, though they could get outplayed in some of them, and
hmm
they seem to understand the meta pretty well. Like if you go back and look at the matches, they played the most games in this tournament. I think they played something like 35 matches or something like that in because they came in through the wild
the
card
wild
too.
card,
They
right?
went 4-0 in the wild card. So we talked about practice. They had been playing very actively in China since after the major, and they continued to play actively in this tournament, a lot of Dota, and they started to kind of figure out like it almost seemed like a formula for teams to have two kind of strength or tanky cores, and then just kind of build around that. Like you see like DK or you know Doom or
Yes, yeah,
like just a lot of these like very beefy kind of cores, and with strength being buffed, we talked about in the latest patch, we really started to see that where they would have like a Spectre, a Tiny, something that's like hard to kill, and then they just play around that. And again, not the case for every single game, but teams generally that respected that multi tanky core composition seemed to do well in this tournament.
yeah. Like the newbie DK was something that was just so fearsome to me when I watched them play Mu on DK. Like that hero is a serious issue. Like he just presents a lot of problems now, and probably the most standout signature pick for them this tournament was Tron's Lion, which was absolutely like incredible. Um, I mean, Tron is just like has been a long time, has been known to be like one of the most talented players, but he's kind of been he hasn't been making too much noise, right? The last couple years, right, with his tenure on IG, and like this tournament, he played like out of his mind, honestly. And when you were mentioning like the high ground defense capabilities of newbie, I was watching just like briefly before we hopped on. I was watching the secret game where they had an Huskar with a dazzle, right? And the stuff that they were doing with the DK and line synergy was just it was crazy. Like the Huskar would come high ground, and it was basically threatening to end the game, and they were like dragon tailing him and then force staffing him in, and then line using his spells. and then like they had like KP's tight under run onto the backline and Ravage to like stun the Dazzle. Like it was just such great coordinated play, and they had like these game plans with all of their abilities, and they had just very intuitive ways to just take fights. And like you were saying, they like their precision and like the cleanliness of their play. When I was watching that series against Liquid, it was just a little bit hasty decisions with like smokes that I felt like changed that final game, I believe. I think it was just one fight where they were looking for, like looking for a fight and when they were smoked, and they kind of just settled on like a pretty bad attempt, and then Liquid kind of collapsed on them, and that was kind of the game deciding moment. But just a few mistakes obviously between like two great teams, and yeah, Newbie has just been stellar, and it's kind of coming back to the things that we've mentioned in past episodes where we're like, personally, I believe that like it's to your benefit to just get out there and just play games. And the active teams, they just, in my mind, I think you just get to set yourself up for success. And if you're relying on scrims and kind of just like your own region's competition, then it's probably not going to be enough in my mind. Like EG has been really dormant recently, like in tournaments. Well, not recently, but like for a long stretch at least. And that team is kind of stagnated. And but yeah, Newbie is just an example, I think, of the other side of things.
This actually came up in at Shanghai. I overheard some of the talent and casters discussing it, and basically people were grasping for an explanation of why the Chinese teams had trouble. And I think one of the explanations given was that if you have these Chinese teams that are used to playing against each other, again, it's almost like a historical thing, right? Like when
Yeah.
China kind of just assumed that it was superior and cut itself off from the rest of the world, and then a couple hundred years later, everyone else has been mixing it up, but you've kind of been sitting on your own, and suddenly you're behind everybody. And that was like a microcosm of what happened with the Chinese scene. It felt like, I think, the more competitions they go to, they're known for mastering metas quickly, but not necessarily for taking big leaps in them, or being more innovative than some other teams. And then part of that is a stereotype, and that is dangerous. But I think there's some truth to it, and so that's got to be healthy for the Chinese scene in the long term as well, to get outside and play other tournaments. We haven't talked much about Liquid, but I mean, yeah, the quality of Dota keeps going up with like every final, and I think one big thing really that hurt Newbie in that tournament is Earth Spirit. The play
Yeah.
from Jirax was just
Oh crap,
obscene,
man.
and so like he knows that hero so well down to the details, and you kind of wondered, hey, with this hero being nerfed a little bit, although
With the stone.
the
Yeah.
strength buff continues to be huge for this hero because he is a strength based, like, do it all caster, and so strength going up continues to help him in terms of survivability. But it was like Newbie were not calculating for what the Earth Spirit's disruptive potential was. It's
Yeah.
it's one of those heroes where like you almost maybe don't notice, or like you're not totally sure what he can do because you're not always used to playing against like
Yeah. Exactly.
high
Yeah.
skill cap, like pinnacle tier Earth Spirits, right?
Yeah. It's just an entirely different challenge, and it alters the draft dynamics also pretty significantly, right? Because suddenly you have to draft against Liquid, like based on what they can do with certain heroes that you wouldn't like ban too much. So when I was looking over like the ban statistics and of the, like, say for example, the group stage at Epicenter, um, Earth Spirit was like, I'm looking at it briefly, like 10th for combined pick and ban percentage. So that's just mediocre, right? That's not even anything truly significant. What was super contested the tournament, we saw a lot of Doom pick and ban at 96 percent, Beastmaster 92% pick or ban. So that's saying like pretty much every game you would see these two heroes, and I think just from, if you just look back and you're in your mind, you're like, yeah, that seems about right, right? DK 88%. So these are just almost every single game, right? IO 70%, and then it drops off to Darkseer at 60, and Earth Spirit's around 54. But with Team Liquid and what they can do with that hero, like it's stellar, right? Um, Jarex just gets so much more out of the early game. I feel with the rolls and setting up kills in the mid lane. It's just so much pressure, and that's not even mentioning. I thought like another great performer this tournament. Well, I mean, Mind Control played great, but I have to talk about Matumba Man because I felt like, okay, he didn't lose a single game on Lycan. Like that was a thing. His lone druid performances were pretty damn impressive. Um, yeah, he was just so reliable, and I think when like they kind of play around him in like the late game because they know he's just gonna be like a very reliable carry. That's just the feeling I get. And Mind Control does his thing on Beastmaster, which is pretty effectual most of the time. And they just seem to have like just a great like 1, 2, 3 punch. and then you have Jerax kind of causing like chaos in the start of the game, and like when you look at the lineup, they seem just very strong at every position, right? With Kuroki's, unconventional drafts kind of rounding everything out.
Yeah, and again, I don't want to oversimplify things, but really it just felt like in this meta in this tournament, the team that was better equipped to run at you or had this kind of run at you
Yeah,
composition with
yeah,
multiple strength cores seemed to be having the best time of things. And like we kind of talked about this in the patch breakdown where we expected games to get maybe a little bit greedier, with like the towers being buffed and the HP going up, and the strength heroes really seem to be benefiting from that. It really feels like the age of strength, and yeah, like when you talk about even heroes that are not traditionally strength heroes, but heroes that still want to run at you, like a Slark, like a Spectre, something we saw a lot of obviously Alchemist as well, who like kind of went away for a little bit, but
hmm
had like a resurgence basically,
yeah,
during this tournament. Just yeah, like a hero that gets more HP out of the strength. Never really had mana problems to begin with, so you don't care that much about the int. Gets a lot of gold and even more gold, in a sense, from like the increased creep bounties, and just wants to be in your face like the whole time. And so we saw that, and but there still remained a healthy diversity of picks. So we saw Miracle on Tinker and things like that. So I mean, I think it's in a pretty good place.
when you talked about like the way we kind of looked at the patch and maybe anticipated how the pace of the game would change, I feel like the DK was just the answer to that, right? Because when you talk about people with who can benefit off of an armlet, that hero it goes from like, okay, this is a huge issue, this guy is really tanky. He turns on the armlet, it's like, this is just, we can't deal with this. We don't have the damage at the time of the game to deal with a DK armlet. Do you know what I mean, Jack? And like, yeah, of course it's hard. It's harder to take down towers with the armor aura and just the way it's positioned, even to go high ground. But with armlet DKs, like that just seemed to be like the siege engine that kept the pace of the game kind of higher. And like Liquid kind of relied on, Beastmaster pushes, right? Lycan pushes, Lone Druid pushes, uh, and that was sort of like the answer to kind of keep the pace of the game similar to previous patches in my mind. Um, but yeah, that's what I saw out of Liquid. They still relied on their own kind of pushing cores, to do the damage and keep the games kind of short. Like I don't feel like very many games for Liquid were just like ultra long games. So
Yeah. So congratulations to them on taking home a tournament. This was a team. This is a team that I think has quickly become one of the favorites going forward. When they were formed, people maybe were a little bit uncertain. They didn't have the biggest names. I think their biggest name in terms of players was probably Kuroki. But I think initially, I believe they were already doing very well. They didn't qualify for, I think it was the Frankfurt Major, but they were winning like tournaments in Europe at the time,
yeah,
and so they seem to be strong, and they obviously showed that at Shanghai and won this tournament, probably looking to be one of the favorites going into Manila. And speaking of Manila, so the battle passes for the basically this compendium, this latest major compendium, is out, and so I thought we could mix things up a little bit and go through some of the predictions for Manila, and have some fun with that. And I think next week we'll have a more detailed Manila preview show. So you got your compendium ready, Shrew?
I'm just loading it up now. There's an update, so I'll pop it open and we can kind of dig in. Let's see, Manila Major predictions, right?
Yep.
Another thing before we dig into this, the last battle pass, I feel like people were a little bit upset about the value. I don't know. It was just like a little bit of talk about how it's a bit expensive for what you got. This time around, they made the price a little bit more expensive. So I think last time it was $7.99 in US dollars. This time it's like $9.99 if I'm not wrong. And this includes the Manila Major kind of prediction page, and also the International 2016 Compendium on top of the Battle Pass. So there's that, and I think they've made some improvements with Battle Pass. I think they've even added this like new ranked recalibration feature. Give you guys have a If you guys still have like hoop dreams of reaching your next bracket, 3K, 4K, whatever it may be. Um,
Hoop
so
dreams.
I don't know, guys. I'm just gonna be, I'll keep it kind of modest, but yeah, yeah, I'll be excited to kind of run on some of these quests, but yeah, to the predictions, Jack. Let's go.
All right. So hero predictions. Most picked hero. Who you got?
I'm gonna probably put my money on Lion, I think. And it's between a Lion or Invoker, probably in my mind. I took a peek at the epicenter picks, and those two heroes kind of stood out because it's those are two heroes that they just kind of leak through the draft, right? No one's gonna really ban a Lion in first phase. There's other things you have to deal with, dooms and nonsense like that. What do you think, Jack?
Yeah, I think those two are going to be picked a lot. I think Invoker remains kind of strong. They've been nerfing him consecutively, but I think the issue with that hero is that he's way too he's got way too good of a stat base for a hero that is supposed to be an
Mm-hmm.
omni caster, in the sense that like he somehow lanes like fairly well. I mean, he's in the professional scene he's easier to kill and go after because you're coordinated, but he still lanes pretty well, and
Yeah,
he's got excellent attack range. He's got very good attack damage for a hero that isn't supposed to be like a right
clicker.
clicker. He
Yeah,
can either move extremely fast and like his HP is decent as well. Like that hero is
yeah,
just
we get it. We
just
get it. It's a
yeah.
strong hero. We played it in the pubs, dude.
Yeah. Again, I don't want to apply too much of what we're getting in pubs to the professional scene,
Oh no,
and we
no.
have seen a drop in Invoker as expected, but
Mhm.
the hero just remains extremely versatile, and
Right.
I'm not sure if the nerfs have been enough. But the hero that I picked is DK. We were just talking about him, and this feels like a hero that, for the most part, for most picked hero, you want one that's not gonna be like banned, and so I like the Lion selection because that doesn't seem like the type of hero that you would
Right.
ban for the
Yeah.
most part. DK may be a little bit more bannable than Lion at this point, but I'm still not sure if it's a hero that you want to ban early on, or that might not sneak through that first phase as like a pick. And
Right.
I think a lot of teams, yeah, this hero just fills a lot of roles right now. He's in a good spot laning wise. Like he doesn't feel particularly threatened with those kind of like softer nuking mids being maybe taken out a little bit. He feels safer to pick for the most part, and so yeah, I went with DK.
Sure.
Most banned hero, who you got?
Most banned, it's gonna be Beastmaster or Doom, I think. And I think they kind of like it's. I don't think there's too much explanation required. What do you think, Jack?
Yeah, for most banned and hero with highest win rate, I've got Beastmaster.
Okay, yeah,
If we agree that this is a run at you type of meta, this is like the run at you hero. Not only does it give you vision for where to run at you and
it
when to run at
just
you, but I
it
mean,
does too
his whole
much.
team comes running right behind him with those book creeps, and it is just a very, very annoying and strong hero to play into because it's like you're kind of in a lose lose. If you don't fight him, he has lockdown and he can kill you. If you fight him, it feels like it takes way too much to kill him. It's like way too much of a headache.
Yeah,
So
and if you commit resources to try to take him down because he's doing that split pushing thing like in the off lane, you're gonna run through hawks and random pigs on the way. It's just a pain in the ass, right? And then late game, he does that tree line thing with a blink dagger. Comes out, necro threes your like your mid core, and he goes down. It's just nonsense, nonsense Dota. Hero, I
nonsense.
I agree with you on the highest win rate. It was one of the most successful heroes of Epicenter as well. So let's move on.
All right, hero with highest kill average. I have Invoker.
Highest kill average, huh? This is one that's gonna take. I'm okay to just to take your lead for Invoker. Nothing else comes into mind in terms of just gets every single kill in a game. I think I can agree with you on that.
It could be something like Slark as well, but um, yeah, I don't know. I feel like a lot of times with Invoker, like you're kind of looking to blow people up, right? And so the hero just lends itself to that kind of playstyle where you're like really dropping things on people to secure kills, or Sun Strikes, obviously, with all the coordination
Sure.
coming out. So highest assist average, I have.
Highest
I
assist
kind of
average.
feel like it should be something like Phoenix. Uh,
Yes, yes, yeah. Yeah, it's unavoidable. Like it's just gonna hit everything, kind of big eggs and stuff. Hmm.
yeah, it's hard
Darkseer.
to it's easy to overanalyze this type of thing, but I'm going for
Darkseer
that.
is probably
Hero
gonna
with
be up
the
there as well. Yeah.
what?
Darkseer is also, I think, maybe a pretty good candidate as well, just because a shell hero there and like a vacuum, usually gonna catch a couple heroes. But yeah,
That's a good choice. That's a good choice because he just about never finishes kills, right? But
yeah,
he's involved in a
precisely.
lot of them.
Has to be.
Um, okay, hero with the lowest death average. Who you got?
Whew. What was death average? Sven? I'm thinking like a Sven, just
Oh,
or
okay.
yeah, just someone who's gonna play a more of like a passive game, and come out and fight on his own terms. And he's naturally tanky, of course, with that ridiculous armor buff. And if you build stats, what do you got?
You've kind of convinced me. I
Boom,
had something like
boom, right there, dude.
I had something like I don't know. I probably go with like anti-mage. But I
Yeah,
don't know if he's gonna get played that many
yeah,
times.
right. But it's an
So that's
average,
my
right? So
concern.
it's you could go kind of niche with it, right? Like a rarely picked hero. And 5 games played, maybe AM doesn't slide through to that. So
Yeah, that's. I'm actually more worried about whether he gets played that much than whether he
hmm.
meets the average.
There's
Because I
Morphling as
think,
well. Morphling is also a pretty good candidate, I think, right?
yeah, that's a good call. That's a good call. He's also extremely escaping. We saw him kind of become prominent as well.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I'd probably go with toss up between AM and Morphling.
Sure, sure.
Hero with the highest last hit average. So here I took your. I agree with you on the Sven because he just he wants to be stacking and just hitting creeps.
I'm gonna go with Tinker, I think.
Tinker,
Yeah, because Sven,
interesting.
he's like doesn't like eat the map. He'll hit things that are worth a lot of money, like heroes and and ancients. But Tinker's just everywhere, right? And if there's enough Naga games, like there's no other hero that can compete with that. Like it's not even close, I think.
That's true.
Yeah.
Tinker is kind of everywhere, but I don't know. I mean, often you're not in a position where you can kind of safely be everywhere. And my gripe on backing down from Tinker is that he doesn't really farm ancients. So
Yeah.
that's kind of where Sven. I feel like you stack maybe a little bit more readily and more easily for yourself
Mhm.
as a Sven than as a
And there's
Tinker.
also Alchemist. So those are all heroes that, it's give or take. Just depends on what might be most popular. And of those heroes, I'd maybe put my money on Sven or Alk, right? So Tinker is maybe a little bit less popular. And it depends on how many games Eternal Envy wins to play his Naga or RTC plays plays Naga. So there's that too.
Well, speaking of Alchemist, I've got him next for hero with the highest GPM average. I think this is pretty much a mortal lock.
Yeah.
Um,
Just don't worry
like,
about it.
have you? We talk about how high it gets. I think what was it like? Didn't we have like a 1296 GPM or 1496? Something absurd.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
GPM Tinker, but I mean not Alchemist. Sorry, but what is like the lowest GPM Alchemist that you've seen? I don't think I've seen one that's below like 600
Yeah, yeah. I was
GPM
gonna
in a
say like
professional
600,
game.
like baseline. Like you could sit in your fountain, you still have 600 GPM. Like that's just how the hero works. Like whatever, man.
Yeah, unless you get absolutely dumpstered, which can happen. Like you're not gonna have a low GPM as Alchemist just by
Mm,
default of how the hero works.
mm.
Um, okay, so hero with the most kills in the game. I went with Tinker for this one actually.
Yeah, I like that. I Tinker Quap, more or less. I think that's pretty much it. Queen of Pain with his like obnoxious like blink in, steal the kill, with the Scream of Pain, right? Yeah, late game that's usually how it goes. But Tinker's a good choice too. And there's also no, what is it, minimum requirement. So Tinker might be one of those heroes that just gets just enough to be under, and will still have a lot of kills. Most
Fair
lasts in a
enough. Hero
game.
with most last hits in the game. Who you got?
There's got to be one AM game, right? 1 AM or Naga game. It's one. It's between those two for me.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
There's
I've
just
got
one. There's
anti-mage.
just one person who just wants to be obnoxious and ruin the Dota game for everyone.
I've got, Actually, you know what? I'm gonna change that right now. I'm gonna go for the Naga. I think.
Yeah. Okay. If we're actually making these changes, we've made some pretty good predictions. Like not to toot our own horn, like for the second or third time on this podcast.
We'll see what happens when push comes to shove and they're actually put to the
It's
test.
because there's
So.
no tournaments till between now and then, right? So this is really just it, right? Most most banned. What
Yeah,
do we see for most?
but obviously people are gonna be scrimming and figuring things out, and we'll try to get the
Yeah,
drop on
things
that
are always
in the
like
coming weeks
changing
as
it now.
well. Okay, let's move on to teams. So right off the bat, the big one, winner of the Manila Major. Who do you have?
You're going first, Jack. I'm not.
Okay, okay.
I'm bailing on you. Like I don't even know. Oh, who do you think, dude?
I Oh man, you put me in a tough spot here.
it's just it's just so hard to predict. Every single major that's come along, it's just felt like it's been enough time for the team that won it previously to fall off. Is that not just exactly how it feels to you? It's like, oh, that's just perfect amount of time for them to be bad now, and for someone else to just to be amazing. That's just how it feels for me, dude.
So I find that interesting because my favorite question to ask like players and other people we interview is if you ran a tournament 10 times, how many different winners would there be? And sometimes it seems like the gap between these teams is really so small or, so minuscule that you really don't know. And so, yeah, no, like, don't stake your house on this one, but I'm going to go with newbie. I'm just going to go with newbie.
Maybe.
Um,
It's probably the safe decision, right? Like, not to call you out or anything, but it's
not
yeah,
safe enough for you to go first, though, huh?
definitely not, dude. I'll let you take the bullet. Sure, we'll go newbie. Certified .pro show.
Well, you don't have to go with me. You're welcome to disagree with
I mean,
me.
I'm just gonna put in Team Secret, like you know that, like, like,
Oh,
but it's not
okay.
a real guess, right?
Okay,
So
all right.
you
All
understand?
right.
Like,
I
I'm
see.
going
I see.
I'm swinging for the fences, like the
I
hedges.
think I think China makes a
China
lot
comes
of
out.
noise in
Mm.
Manila. In my top eight, I have newbie, I've got VGR, and I've got LGD. The only Chinese team that don't have there is Wings. And so I think China comes back in a big way. I think they're past the reshuffle issues. I think they've kind of got the wake up call a little bit. I think they're rounding into form for TI, which they always do, and I just think that they make a very strong showing at this event. So I'm going to predict that a Chinese team wins. And right now, the most consistent Chinese team is probably newbie, and VGRs I think is up there as well. I really like how they play, and obviously they have FY uh, and Yang and not both Yangs actually, the eHome Yang and the offlaner, and they've played really well. And they won a tournament with a stand-in, obviously,
Yeah,
for God's sake. So
it's awesome.
they're a good team. They did lose to LGD recently, I think, in the ESL Frankfurt qualifier,
Mm.
but I'm very high on them. And but I just have to go with newbie because they've looked so generally dominant, and so. If I was to, it's almost like the NBA lottery, right? There's like like a good percentage. That's probably how the distribution I would put it as, like the NBA lottery.
Sure, let's go on.
All right, team with most kills in a game.
This is hard. This is really hard. The most kills in a game. Who just like what teams just like team wipe with like one hero alive? Are there teams that play that way?
So not like a good team wipe, but like a
No, no,
like
no.
a
Like clawing, like just going for it.
right,
Maybe
right.
MVP Phoenix. Like they're showing up, right? If MVP is going to that tournament, it's probably maybe a Navi and maybe an MVP. These are kind of like like the meme picks, but they seem to make sense on paper. What do you think?
I'm going with Vici Reborn. The way they played against Navi
Sure,
in
sure,
Starladder, and the way they generally like to play, where
sure.
FY is like on like a playmaking, like just killing people,
Throw
and
bodies.
they
Let FY. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that's how they play. That is
Mhm.
how they play. And like ZYF like seems to come off his line a lot to go and fight. Like, I think they're a type of the team that gets into these kind of shootout games. And of course there could always be an outlier where it's like, oh, there's like these teams played a 72-minute game and they had like 150 kills or whatever. That could just easily steal the cake. But I'm going with
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
VCR.
I feel you. I feel you on that.
So I've got them for highest kill average as well because I think that's just I think that's how they play, and
Sure.
I think that will continue. Team with fewest deaths in a game.
Fewest deaths in a game. Who plays like slow, thoughtful Dota? EG?
See, so there's two ways to think about this. One is like slow, thoughtful Dota. The other is that they just absolutely slaughter their opponents and they like don't die or they die like 3 times. And so this is one of those things that maybe tends towards the more successful teams. So I'm gonna be boring here and put newbie in this slot as well.
Hmm.
I
Fewest
think
deaths
they're
in a
gonna
game.
have games where they're just like it's like 25-3
Like rolls?
or 3-22 or something like that, and
All right.
that's
I like EG. I'm stick with my EG pick.
okay. Team with most assists in a game.
Most assists in a game. It's probably correlated with the kills in a game, right? So you probably have to pick of those teams that play that style. I'll go. I'll go MVP for this one.
Yep, me too. Me too.
I went with you on the VGR, but I'll go. I'm gonna go with MVP on this one.
They love to fight. They just love to swarm to like everything, and like everybody seems to have a hand in their kills, and everybody stays to like the last drop of health to try to fight. It actually reminds me of like old like kind of CIS Dota with like Virtus Pro way back in the day of like Dota 1. Like it reminds me of that. They just kind of stick around and like just extract every last bit of value, even at the cost of their lives. And
Sure.
I like that. Team that wins the longest game.
Oh, secret.
You know what? I like secrets. So
That's like old secret, right? But something about them still just rings true for me. I think.
I think there's something to be said for that short of just outlier style. I mean, you have kind of like you have very experienced players and leadership there, and people who like to farm, and so I could easily see them in the longest game and being able to win that as well. I mean, we've seen like Envy's Ember Spirit with those rapiers and stuff like that. Like they obviously know how to win long games, and they make the good calls, and so right team that wins the shortest game. So this is beat down. Again, beat down Central here, right?
Wins the shortest game? Newbie.
Team with the highest average game length.
Highest average game length. This is just... We give this the secret award again, I guess?
You like secret on this?
I think so, dude.
Were there games especially long at Epicenter?
Not really if they're getting dumped on, but... Because they just got dumped on, right? It's just like... It depends on like the pool of heroes they play, right? And they don't seem to be the type of team... That's not true. They were playing some RTZ Death Prophet stuff, but in general, like those... Like EE will play these heroes like Slark and Ember Spirit who don't end the game without playing late game Dota, like 4 items in kind of thing, right? Ember Spirit's like 8 items in before he can win a game with that, so...
I'm going to go with Alliance, and that's the team that I picked for a team that picks the fewest different heroes as well. Okay. Again, part of it may be based on a stereotype. It's like, oh yeah, they play these heroes, but like they seem to have a very methodical style. Like they never seem to just really deathball you, and they never seemed overly concerned with a certain timing. This is a team that seems to play around like mobility and like kiting and like kind of just getting in and out of fights like as efficiently as possible. And so I think they tend to produce longer games because, if they don't hit their timing, they still have a chance to win or stay in the game just by virtue of their drafts and their like mobility. And so I went with Alliance for a team that picks the fewest heroes because they seem to like be structured around that style just about all the time, and then team highest game length. I'm going with Alliance.
Sure. Next one.
All right. What's your team that picks the most different heroes?
I feel like it's OG. You think about Miracle, that guy has like an endless hero pool. Even Moon plays a lot of stuff, and No Tail's kind of quirky too. So they just kind of go all over the place with the drafts. I think it's OG for me.
I'm sold.
Yeah, like just think about Miracle alone is like, dude doesn't play the same hero twice. Like actually, I think there's some crazy statistic like that out there for OG this past tournament.
Well, speaking of Miracle, in the players tab, moving on, I've got him for the highest kill average. I think he was at or near the top for this tournament. I think it's broken down to like phases, but yeah, he's always seems to be up there, and like this guy just sees things that other people don't see and has like the precision and mechanics to execute it. And we might joke about the memes and the 9,000 MMR and stuff, but like next to like Artur and Miracle, like these are kind of the solo like killers, like in playmakers, right?
Yeah, it's just gonna depend so much on like the success of the team as well, right? So, my heart is telling me just someone from newbie, like How, because there's just games where How just kills everything, right? Where they just put everything into the How basket, the How gyro basket, or the How Spectre basket. I feel like it's the ones you brought up so far, Miracle, Artur. Those are all great choices, but I think I'll go with something like How.
Okay. So because I have Miracle for highest kill average, I've got him for most kills in a game.
I see him having a breakout game, though. I actually agree with you on that. I see how with like the consistency of just having like they're just winning everything, and then Miracle is just like he just goes ape shit on one in one game, one Tinker game or something. So
Right. What's the player with the lowest death average?
it's definitely gonna have to be someone who plays in like a passive. Like I just think of something like I brought it up earlier in this podcast, like Matumba Man, right? Like he comes to mind. Loda, they Alliance kind of plays that defensive style around Loda. I don't usually see Loda putting himself out there too much. Who do you think?
It's actually really interesting, like more and more, the extent that these are kind of team predictions, right?
Yeah.
Because if you think about like players who die the least, it's probably going to be your carry, and then it's going to depend on how the game goes. I mean, that's kind of
Of
like our
course.
argument or
Exactly.
the problem with
Exactly.
KDA. It's like if your team is horrible, you're going to have a disgusting KDA, or you're not doing well.
It's
If
skewed
your
to
team is
success.
good and winning, you're going to have a really
Right.
pretty KDA, and it's going to look like, like you're winning these like last ditch fights where they have no chance. Like, yeah, it's going to look really pretty. And so, I think the best KDA ratios, just looking at the land finals on Dota Buff, is like
Yeah.
Moo, How, obviously both of newbie, Matumba Man, KP's up there, two Liquid players, Fata and Mind Control. I mean, generally speaking, their teams did well,
Yeah.
you know? And
Exactly.
so, yeah, it's kind of a prediction on so lowest deaths. I mean, I feel like Matumba Man is a bit more of an aggressive player. How's kind of like that too. Like
Yeah,
How
I was
likes
gonna
to
say
fight.
like how is also that how is like the Chinese host, right? That was like his old nickname or something. I don't know, but yeah, I think you can go with either like at either one of the carries for newbie or liquid. Be a good choice.
Yeah. I'm gonna go with Koikfa. I think I'm just gonna go with Koikfa.
Sure, dude. Expecting some success with that team, huh?
Yeah, I mean this guy's been like such a great playmaker for such a long time, and well, all right, let's move on.
Sure.
Um, Highest assist average.
Oh, this is gonna be really tough too, actually. Again, success based, right? I think you can just choose any of the like elite offlaners, maybe, right?
Sorry, I made a mistake back there. I did not. I did not mean to say that because Koikfa is on No Diggity. I had him confused
They didn't
with.
qualify, right?
I thought he was on. I thought he was. Uh, I meant Feta. Sorry, not Koikfa.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, Feta also plays very steady style.
All right.
Highest assist average. Like I was gonna say, like the offlaner for newbie comes to mind. Like mind control, maybe not so much. I don't know. Maybe if universe goes crazy, right? Moon, those kind of players. Who do you got?
Yeah. Well, during this event, I think Kaka and KP had the highest assist average. But then again, that's part of their play
Success
style
based,
and just part of
right?
being everywhere. Fear had a really high assist average as well, and
That's
for even
surprising.
on a team that didn't do that well. Um, so most assist in the game, most assist average. I mean, you know what? I like EG. I like
Let's go, old
Fear.
man. Let's go, old man.
Yeah, let's go, old man. Player with most assists in a game.
Oh, I'm
Who's
not
that
sure.
like Darkseer player that goes like 2 and 4
Or
and
like a
like
Phoenix
30?
player, maybe, or
What?
or maybe like a Phoenix player, or like a Zeus as well. Who? Oh, maybe Fata Zeus. Fata Zeus comes to mind. Fata plays Zeus one game, maybe he goes crazy. It's hard to say. It is really hard to say. Hmm. Let's see.
Okay. Uh, I'm gonna go to your favorite team here. I'm just gonna put it on. I'm gonna put it on Universe.
Yeah, Uni. Yeah, why not?
No, it's not a support though. I'm gonna feel like Universe is gonna play Clockwork one game. His Rockets are just gonna hit everyone, and that's what's gonna rack up the assists.
Sure, sure, sure.
All right.
All right, that's fine.
Player with the highest last hit average.
Man, is it our tour? I don't know. Who Envy? Like I don't know how our tour farms now on with Secret in the fold.
Well, according to land finals, it was Jackie 1 and Artur 3.
My goodness. All right, Jackie it is. Jackie it is. I mean, Jackie's gonna be playing carry, right? It's probably gonna be him.
All right, safe
Efficiency.
prediction. Safe prediction.
Efficiency.
Um,
Most last hits in a game? I'm going with the Mao. I'm going with Chairman Mao, dude.
nope, I'm definitely not. I have a very, for these kind of obscure categories, I have a very clear choice in mind for this one, and
Okay.
it's Loda.
Loader?
It is Loda because there. I'm reminded of this ESL one New York game from 2014 where he
Wow.
got the MVP of the tournament because he played Terrorblade and he had like 900 something last hits.
Ugh.
And I think they lost the game actually, or they lost the series. I think they might have won the game but lost the series. And I remember the time it was kind of like, how are you going to give this player MVP of the tournament for like last hitting creeps when they like lost? But Loda just based on Alliance, so like we agree that Alliance has like, you know, has like longer games sometimes, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Because they have this kind of like ratty type of thing going, or this is at least by reputation. There's going to be a game where Loda's on like Terrorblade,
Yeah.
or like Slark or something, and like or Naga even, and they just have to keep farming to like keep the waves pushed out into the game, and he's gonna end up with like 1,000 last hits. That's what I think is gonna happen.
I'm going with the E Ember. There's gonna be one game where they just cannot go high ground, or like they're fighting against like megas or something, and he's just hitting like just melting everything. So go with my boy.
Wow, not biased at all.
Nope.
Player with most
Nope.
GPM in a game.
Oh, it's like the same statistic, right? Ah, most GPM in a game. I guess technically you just go with who had the most last hits, right? Right, Jack? Or
Oh,
I
I
guess
see what you're
technically,
doing.
or although technically it could just also be someone who just goes crazy, right? With kill gold as well.
No, it's someone who plays Alchemist.
So, someone
So
plays
who's
Alchemist.
like who's gonna have like
It's gonna be
that
Miracle.
insane
It's
game on
Miracle.
Alchemist?
I'm calling Miracle for sure then. If that's the case, no one else plays
I,
Alchemist. Like, I think he's like a special Alch player. So
we don't think Weehaw will break his own record.
we
Oh,
okay,
oh, said
okay,
with dismissiveness. Oh,
okay, okay.
snarky. Um,
It'll be tough. Like DC's playing some really good teams, man. Like for them to get like a game where Weehaw just goes ape shit and farms the whole map and rolls over the other team. It'll be tough, man. I'm going with the Miracle Boy.
you going Miracle? All right. Player with the highest GPM average. Oh, I'm going with Miracle on this one because he pretty
Uh,
consistently has it actually.
GPM average. I'll go with Miracle too. They just play through him, right? They just put all your cards under the on the 8K boy.
Player
9K
that
boy,
plays
9K
the
boy.
most different heroes. Are we going with Old Man here?
Most different heroes. It's Old Man or Miracle, right? Or who?
You know, it'd be hilarious if Old Man. This won't happen most likely, but if Old Man if they decide to switch roles on Old Man in the middle of the tournament,
My God.
like if they have some trouble in groups and they're just like,
My
you know what?
God.
You know what? Screw it. We're putting you back on carry, and then he's just. It's not. This is probably not going to happen. But
Okay.
what if by some act of God, there's like a 2-day layoff between the group stage and the finals, and they're like, hey,
And Fear's
you know
practicing
what?
like.
This is this is what we've secretly been
Oh
preparing for, but we're only
God.
going to show it to you in the elimination phase.
So, do you remember Drag Neil when they went for that one gank and they GG'd out?
Yeah.
This is the equivalent on like a roll swap level. Like Fear going for carry swap. If they don't make it to the finals, it's like disband.
Oh, you're saying that it's like a rage type of decision?
Sure. Like PBD's like, you
It's
know
like
what,
a
Fear?
tilt decision?
Yeah. Like in the draft, he's like, you know what, Fear? What do you want to play for carry? And then AOI is like just silent, and it's just like, holy crap.
Can we make one of those Reddit shitposts that's like a story version of this?
Oh, that,
Where it's
I
like
mean
they're
that,
just like together
that's
in the
just
booth
gold
and
material,
then
dude. You're just trying to gather gold. Cred.
and then there's like a coach's speech. No, and then there's like a tense moment after they've struggled in the group stage, and then just Boba just comes in,
Yes.
and then
I
Boba
was,
launches into like this coach's halftime speech,
yes.
like the last time we had success at TI, and I'm letting it run with this a little bit too much, but
Oh no, dude, I'm behind you on this. Like Boba just doesn't play offlane, and he coaches, and Ichi goes with 4 people, and they win.
oh,
You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean?
Alright.
Now we're in the right direction.
that might be a stretch, but
Oh, okay, good call. Yeah, you're right. I should reel it in. My bad, dude.
you know what? I will say this. I have lost to EG 4 and 5 before. This was years ago in Dota 1 in CEVO Season 2.
What the?
And so I can't entirely say no. This is not gonna. That's not gonna happen. But I'm gonna go with fear for players that place the most heroes.
Sure, man. I'm with you on it.
All right, and then tournament predictions. I mean, total games played. I don't know.
Nah. Eh. Eh. This is just like nonsense stuff, right? Like anyone could randomly. Total number of games played could be a bit more intuitive, just because you have to like that's like the EG award, right? Like they just play through the lower bracket.
Right, but that's not even a team thing. That's a tournament thing. So it's like if you think that like this is basically if you think the better teams are that much better than the crappier teams. You know what I mean?
Oh.
It's like, yeah, are they just gonna like stomp everyone, and then the games are only gonna be close and like the? I mean, I'm just gonna put a random one for this category.
Yeah. Okay, Jack. Like that's a wrap. Like I'm not messing with this stuff. This is just random nonsense.
All right, no. There are a few. There are a few that are worth looking at here. I think it's the total number of heroes picked. How balanced do you think this meta is right now? What's your pick number?
I like the thing is like I have an intuitive sense of the diversity of the picks, but I don't have an intuitive sense that matches to like a value, like a quantitative value. Does that make sense to you? Like I don't know.
Right.
Like I have
Well,
I just have a
okay.
general sense. Like I don't like some patches are more restrictive than others. Some are more diverse. I don't have a number that is like matches to that
Right.
feel.
Yeah,
So
I'm not gonna say neither of us is gonna say, oh, this feels like a 61 to 70
yeah.
hero
Oh,
patch
this is like a
instead of like an
45
81 to
man
90.
tournament. Yeah, like
So I think the extremes are a little bit. We're not gonna go with 0 to 60 because that's like a very stale meta. We're not gonna go with 101 plus because that's like everybody, and I don't think
okay.
we're gonna see everybody. Um, But I'm going to go towards the higher end here. Instead of 71 to
Yeah.
80, I'm going to go with 81 to 90. I think there's
Yeah.
still a lot of
Like middle, yeah,
experimentalism.
middle centric and like a little bit towards diverse, I think.
Yeah, because if you think about this patch, right? So there's been, what, basically one LAN on this patch. So there hasn't been a whole lot of elite tier, like tier 1 major Dota played on this patch because obviously, in the past you had 8 teams, as many as 8 teams qualifying. This time you've had 4. Other teams have only had one LAN. So I think there's going to be a lot of experimentation
Mhm.
and variety. And so I'm going with 81 to 90. And yeah, for Heroes Band, I think those don't usually go that wildly. And so I'm going to go with 0 to 60 or 61 to 70 in that range.
Yeah, the banning is just gonna be a lot smaller. The interesting thing is that Valve just gave us huge like ranges, and they didn't change it to the statistic, like to like kind of match the ban statistics. So I think for bans, it's like 0 to 60 seems reasonable. What else here do you think is like a something we could tackle?
Well, for longest game in the tournament, again, it's kind of a crapshoot, but in terms of over under, let's pretend we had an over under for this longest game of the tournament. If I were to say 80 minutes, would you go over? Would you take the over or the under based on like the meta and like what you've seen?
Probably under, man. Honestly.
Really?
Yeah, I don't. There just weren't that many long ass games like that. I just see like 80, below 80 for sure. Maybe like 60 minutes something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um. All right. So the rest of this stuff, I mean, we'll just briefly go through shortest game of the tournament. I think there's going to be like a 15 to 20 minute GG in there somewhere,
Yeah.
where someone's lanes have been.
Just
And
botched.
again, this goes to teams too. Like maybe if you think the gap between the teams are like really big, and to be
Yeah.
to be honest with you, I think the only team in this qualifying field that really looks very separate from its peers is probably Mineski in my mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
But
I like them and they're cool, and I like that they represent that the SEA is growing. But the way Mineski has performed at the lands they've been at, they've had a lot of trouble, and I think that will continue to be the case,
I feel you.
despite the rising tide of like Fnatic and MVP. I don't know if Mineski's on that level, and so I hope they totally surprise me and defend their kind of home turf like really well, but I don't see it. Kills by a hero. I'm gonna go with 26 plus because I think we both think there's gonna be some kind of explosive game in terms of feeds. Um,
Feeds for a game. It's got usually it's. You think about like supports is the thing, right? Like usually somewhere between 10 to 14 maybe, 10 to 14, like anywhere between that range I feel is reasonable. More than that is just crazy, dude.
Yeah, I agree. Um, and then finally, highest GPM. You think we're gonna have 1,000 plus? I'm almost certain that we're gonna have a 1,000 plus.
Yeah, 1,000 or like anywhere like it's between the 900 to 999 to 1,000 plus. I think is just like the outlier stuff.
Yeah, well, I think we're just gonna have a runaway alchemist. Maybe in the shortest game of the tournament as well. We're just
Right off
like,
the
oh
rails.
my god, he's 5 slotted, and
Yeah.
our carry doesn't have anything yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so I think any other thoughts just generally for Manila? I mean, who's your like top four or top eight? Who do you have?
Oh, bro, top four Manila. I like OG. I like I like Liquid. I like Newbie. And then it just depends on who's gonna make that jump. It could be an LGD, it could be a Secret, it could be an EG. But I feel like the OG Liquid Newbie is looks like those three looks like their time just from that last week of Dota. What about you, man?
So, so here's the thing. I really like when a lot of these results just kind of totally shock us and we're just completely wrong about stuff. And I like that aspect of Dota.
Yeah, for
And so
sure.
I think it actually helps to have more of these predictions to kind of see what we were thinking about these teams coming into the tournament.
Mhm.
My top eight, I've got VGR, as I said. I've got Newbie, and I've got LGD. So it's the three Chinese teams because I think LGD has started to pick it up recently. I think in terms of their performance at Star Ladder, and then you see like the Frankfurt the ESL1 Frankfurt qualifier,
Sure.
beating Vichy Reborn in the finals. I mean, I think this team is starting to live up to kind of the hype, to kind of the potential, and I think they're going to finish top eight. Um, Liquid, I would consider almost a lock
Yeah.
for that. I think
Yeah.
Alliance is gonna do well. I also I think Alliance and Navi are both gonna make it. Actually, I like both of them. I
Top
think
eight.
that Navi
Wow.
has kind of shown that they're like ready as well. And I'm gonna put your favorite team. I'm gonna put Secret and OG in the top eight as well because, yeah, I don't know. I think Secret is just too talented to not find their way into the top half of this tournament.
EG
And
shutout? MVP shutout?
yeah, I've got those two shut up.
Yeah. Alright. Alright.
And it feels bad because they're two of my favorite teams, but
Yeah.
I don't know. MVP they seem strong, but they seem a little inconsistent.
Hmm.
And I don't know if I feel like they're one of those situations where people really underestimated them for a long time, and people aren't going to do that anymore.
Yeah, I feel you on that.
And so I'm not sure if they'll continue to have reach kind of the heights that they did. And yeah, I think EG still has some things to figure out, but I mean, I expect to be totally wrong about this, so that's part of the fun, right?
Yeah, absolutely, dude.
All right, so that's going to do it for this edition of the .Pro Wednesday show. Next week, we hope to have another special guest on with us to help preview the Manila Major in greater detail than Shrew and myself can do. So thank you very much for listening in. If you'd like to find us, we're on Twitter under the .P network of shows, and you can find that Twitter .P_show. I am your host at KBBQ Dota, my co-host at Woodshrew Dota. And coming up, as usual, tomorrow is going to be Theorycraft Thursdays with Ursinity and Proud. And, of course, check out our network of shows. We've got something for everybody. Thanks for supporting us. And, we'll keep doing better each and every week and bring you more interviews and more content. And that's going to do it for today. Thank you very much, and see you next week.